Odd days we're living in, Marlin.
Indeed, they are odd days, John.
So here we are, our first Odd Days podcast, which will
We
be
are
airing.
launching.
It's going to be be airing on odd days, chronicling our odd days, and it just seemed right to start with this goonish ICE action, gunning down American citizens, goons with guns. But before we get into it, I just wanted to say it's great to be on with you, Marlon. I really appreciate you, and I'm glad we're doing this. Here we are. We've talked about it for a while.
We have talked about it for a while and overcome all the technical difficulties that come with doing something like this.
As you and I were thinking about all the issues, it's just it. I think what came to mind for us that hasn't been talked about much is why are these ICE goons carrying guns, right?
For
Why?
civil infractions. For civil infractions. Yeah.
For civil infractions, correct. They're not. I mean, I haven't heard of any immigrants shooting back at ICE when they're busting in their door, violating the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution. Have you?
No. Immigrants are usually doing their best they can to comply with the law because they want to stay in America. They don't want to get deported. And the people that are being rounded up. I mean, there was an ice cream man in Los Angeles who was taken, and then once you start going down that road, it's just anybody, American citizens, 5-year-old children. Um, it's what happens in a fascist state.
Is exactly what happens in a fascist state, and I think it's important to ground this in the reality that those that are being targeted in this fascist state are people of color, right? Brown skin, black skin, and there was, as a huge outcry today about Trump's posting on social media an image of the Obamas as apes, and
But that's par for him.
that's
That's who he is. There's
right.
nothing. He's always been a racist.
He has always been a racist, but it's not always as in your face. For example, with ICE, right? It's essentially overtly racist policies. The Minneapolis, police chiefs last week held a press conference where they're saying, "Listen, we're getting all kinds of calls that our constituents are being pulled over solely based on the color of their skin," and the sheriff of Hennepin County, where Minneapolis is, emphasized the word solely based on the color of their skin. And so I think, today's post just kind of like echoes that basic racist policy. And then into that, you have these ICE goons enforcing the racist policy with guns. And I think we can all think of times in our history when you've had racist policies for slavery, for example, enforced with guns, right? I mean, this is a
Well,
sordid
what's
history.
going on with the Somalians now in Minneapolis and people that are who are basically in hiding, and citizens were bringing them food. It definitely echoes what was going on in Germany during the war with what they wwere doing, persecuting the Jews and the Danes and the Dutch, and some people in France were hiding them. So now we're
Right.
hiding. We're hiding Somalians and
Latinos.
Ecuadorians and Hondurans and other people who are just trying to escape this roundup and put in concentration camps. How else do you
And,
describe
and, and the
this?
good people of Minneapolis, who Bruce made the tribute song to, have been standing up for their neighbors. I mean, that is the main thing
Yeah.
that's happened. And so then you have, I mean, so I think the systemic violence and racism is underreported. I mean, the terror that Somalians and Latinos are living under, afraid to leave their house because of the color of their skin, being pulled over and targeted because of the language they're speaking, is the fundamental outrage. And then kind of getting back to then this issue of reining in racist ICE, right? There's a bill, the Congress right now is deliberating funding bill for the Department of Homeland Security, which includes ICE and Border Patrol. And so there have been a variety of reforms mentioned, including not wearing masks, having ID, having body cameras, etc. However, this fundamental issue of should these ICE goons have guns to enforce a racist policy when they're killing people has not been asked. And so I wanted to queue up for our discussion a law professor, but I know you have something to say before I do that.
Yeah, because we keep using this term goon, and people don't really have much of a sense of like, where did that come from? When was it used? And yeah, this is an old Popeye character. There were goons, and they were just these big, brutish, thuggish, simple-minded characters. And then so the term gets associated with basically shall I say, the worst of the worst.
You shall. You did.
Yes, I just did. Oh my God, I went and said it. I went and said that which goes without saying.
Well, goons with you said it. Well, I mean, how many times have we always, we hear the gun proponents say the problem is in guns. It's that the bad guys have guns, and that the solution is good guys with guns. I think what we're seeing clearly in Minneapolis is the goons with guns are not the good guys, right? The good guys with guns are nowhere to be seen, right? I mean,
well, wait a second, wait a minute. Alex Petty, who was gunned down, was a legally card-carrying, concealed weapon, had his permit, checked out, right? So Alex was a good guy.
Yes, he was. That's exactly no. Yes, exactly. Alex Preddy was a good guy with a gun. He did not use it in his own defense, and I think how many times have we heard justified in recent decades, right? That oh, it's a shame about Uvalde or Sandy Hook or the killing of elementary school kids with assault weapons. However, we need to maintain access to unfettered access to guns because one day we'll have to defend ourselves against government tyranny. And I would think, Marlin, are we not here? Are we not at that moment?
What's it going to turn into? A shooting war?
No, that's
so the guy who shot Renee Good. Let's say there was a good guy there with a gun. What's he going to do? Shoot the guy who shot Renee Good?
Right. And then I think right. So it leads into mutually assured destruction, to civil war, to mayhem. If the solution to a goon with a gun is a good guy with a gun, because obviously that is not a good solution. It's a horrific, bloody, nightmarish solution. So that leads us back to why then, given this dynamic and this powder keg and their misuse of guns and terrorizing people with guns and killing people with guns, do they have guns for civil enforcement? And why isn't that one of the conditions that Democrats are insisting in the DHS bill? And I wanted to just cue up, if I could, Marlin,
sure,
a law professor's perspective and riff on that. But if you had something you wanted to add,
no, bring it up. Let's. I'm always wanting to hear what law professors have to say.
Aren't we all?
Because it puts me in my place.
Get ready to be excited. Okay.
I'm going to dive right into this. You bring up one about questioning whether or not ICE agents should have weapons in the first place.
Good question.
Okay, first, remember, the general responsibility for law enforcement at the state and local level falls to the local police. At the federal level, it falls to the FBI. And I mention this because violations of immigration orders are civil, not criminal matters. Generally, criminal matters at the federal level are going to be executed with warrants, again, with the FBI. And I raise all this because if, in fact, we're supposedly targeting the worst of the worst, I raised a bunch of questions here regarding whether ICE agents should be carrying weapons at all for civil enforcement of the law, let alone should they be carrying the kind of weapons they are, as opposed to having the FBI going out there and doing criminal law enforcement at the federal level. We're not having that debate so far, but that's one debate that ought to be raised at this point.
That is one debate that ought to be raised at this point. Let's get into that, Marlin.
Let me get you some perspective here. I'm in Vietnam now. I'm bicycling through the country. I've been here long enough to see that the police, the authorities, right, in the town of Hoi An, there's guys in these brown khaki uniforms, and they have a whistle. That's it. If you start going down the street the wrong way, or you're going into a street that's blocked off to motorized traffic, they blow the whistle. Okay. The next level up is a guy with a stick.
So whistles to sticks. So they're using the tools that the Minneapolis protesters are using, where they say we have whistles, they have guns. In the Vietnam, the law enforcement has whistles the same. They could have a whistle off.
A whistle off.
Right.
So I mean, but the point being is that, you know, the police here are trained in martial arts. So they should be able to take down anybody with the stick, and they're training. Now, is there a wide dissemination of guns in Vietnam? No. They've had plenty of that. They had lots and lots of guns here that were bought by the French and the Americans, but they're not disseminated through the culture. The people don't have these things, right? And so the only time I've ever seen any kind of a gun is in front of an embassy, or at huge events like the Da Nang Fireworks Festival, where there's tens of thousands of people out on the street. And I've seen a couple there. But everybody else, they're just carrying a stick, and they're able to maintain peace and order, and everybody's getting along, and no one's getting gunned down accidentally. Like, so many blacks have been pulled over because of the color of their skin, and then they get shot. I mean, how many times have we saw blacks being murdered by law enforcement who are armed to the teeth, like they're going into a war zone?
Well, and this goes back in history, right? Again, slave catchers were heavily armed with pistols and whips and instruments of torture and brutality, and it's the same kind of intimidation and use of violent force that, you know. And I the other night I was at a concert, a tribute of songs to Neil Young at the Troubadour in L.A. and a woman there, I believe it was Rhiannon, was just reflecting on the horror of these times and making that analogy to, like, this is just slave catching by another name in another time, you know. And so again, so just coming back to what you said, like, I know you've traveled elsewhere in Southeast Asia. I mean, do you see anything akin to this kind of like military grade enforcement of the law on the streets of the countries you visit?
No, there's a really clear distinction between their military and the police. Now, that's starting to get blurred in America. There was a lot of militarization of local police forces, with them starting to take on weapons of war. And now it's the opportunity for them to put this kind of thing in practice. You know, you've got to get them ready for when the Americans, create the insurrection that is supposedly coming. The only insurrection that's happening is basically people marching in the street, mostly peacefully.
All peacefully, really.
Yeah, really. I mean, for every sense of the word, it's all peaceful. Yeah.
So even with the militarization of local police, in terms of some gear they have access to, their training is thorough. You have to go to police academy. They have standards. They have protocols.
I saw Police Academy. It was very funny.
Okay, well, we could use some funny Police Academy. That's for sure. But I'm saying they, I think what ICE is now has 47 days of training, which they peg because Trump's the 47th president. It's just so ridiculous. So obviously these guys are untrained.
God, are you serious? They get 47 days?
Yes.
Because Trump's the 47th. Jesus,
Right?
mother.
Right?
Got to be.
It's true story. So 47 days of training, and who knows if they're J6ers or who the hell these guys are. They're Proud Boys. They're people that couldn't get into the police academy or they couldn't get into the military, and they're getting
Who
paid
can't pass a
50,000.
fifth grade physical PE test?
Right, they're getting paid 50 grand as a signing bonus. No standards, no background checks. Who knows? They're just all comers. These are the guys we're arming, and they have immunity and impunity, operate with impunity. They have immunity from the top down. They've been told that. And I think that's an important thing to remember is all of this is from the top down. When they immediately excuse the killings and blame the victims, what the message is it is this is our policy, and you guys on the ground with goons with guns are welcome to enforce it. And so with all things considered, then if that's the policy, and if it's madness to think that good guys with guns using Second Amendment rights could defend against this very government tyranny because it would just lead to all out blood on the streets, and the goons with guns have bigger and more guns, and that's just a stupid mutually assured destruction strategy.
But wait,
Therefore,
let me just stop you there. There are over 400 million guns in the hands of civilians.
Right, but they're not going to be used. I don't think we're not advocating, nor I think any sane person advocate. So the question is,
No, of course not.
if the goons with guns, if it's the policy like it was with slavery to use guns to round up people and to terrorize them, to enforce civil law, and if it's not a strategy to fight back with guns, which we would both agree with, then can this situation ever be brought to heel and made sane while the goons have guns? And should that not be part of the current funding debate about the continuation of ICE funding?
But you use the word sane there, and I've got to just call that out because clearly what's happening isn't what you would consider sanity in the scope of the 250 years that America has been in its existence. We're now celebrating the 250th year with basically a fascist regime in place. So you could say, in a lot of ways, America is on its deathbed. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights as we know it, is on life support.
Well, and and so I would always say, like, the worse things get, the bolder we have to be, and I would never give up on like the future we need to create for my daughter and all kids and future generations. And I think this is the time that tries men's souls, as they say, right? This is the put up or shut up moment. This is our moment looking into the face of fascism and goons with guns.
And also looking into the face of your children.
Yeah.
Because, look, I just finished watching Stranger Things. You've got a bunch of kids there who saved the world, okay? And all we're asking is, like, for the adults in the room in America to save your own country.
Yep.
And so yes, there's always going to be this ever-present militaristic approach to social order in America, as opposed to something more sane in Vietnam, where there's just police handling a stick and people are kind to each other.
Whistles and sticks.
Whistles and sticks.
Whistles and sticks and kindness. Oh my.
Right? And it's like if you have someone who's an illegal immigrant. I saw the picture of this woman coming out of her house. She had hospital scrubs on and Crocs, and there's like 7 guys in her yard with military grade
weapons, military grade weapons.
And she opens the door, and this is like, what the fuck are you guys doing here? This isn't Halloween.
And think of the trauma.
Up like you're playing army.
Think of the trauma of children, living in fear of this happening or witnessing it happening to their parents or to the little kids that are rounded up at gunpoint. And spray, it is just so outrageous. And I think we just have to keep reminding ourselves this is outrageous. And I think even if we get rid of the badges and even add badges and get rid of the masks and add body cameras, there's still a problem with this Trump's private military force acting on a racist basis, running around enforcing civil laws with guns. And I think that in the next week, I would encourage everyone listening to call Congress, call your representative and your two senators, 202-224-3121, and ask to support. Yeah, I'm a nerd. I know that number. Ask them, support the reforms that are being put forth by the Democrats, but also ask them why is this private Trump racist goon squad allowed to carry military grade weapons, and how will
I
that
got
ever
you
end
an
well?
answer. Okay, look, here's the answer. The reason they have those guns. Trump is trying to incite enough anger that people revolt, and then he can invoke martial law and call off the elections. That's what this is all about.
And we're going to explore that on our next Odd Days episode. I think that's an important point. Like, what is the end game here? And we're gonna, but that's let's okay. The next
We'll put a
episode,
button in that.
Marlon, we got to roll. It's been great to have our first Odd Days moment.
All right, so let me leave you with the joke because you want to leave them laughing.
Here we go.
Why did the cowboy get a dachshund?
Why did the cowboy get a dachshund, Marlon?
Because he wanted to get a long little doggy.